This watch is the new king of Japanese dress watches. Some will say that the Seiko cocktail time range is the king of this genre, but they do lack some major specs. This Japanese dress watch though comes in with an automatic high beat movement, a domed sapphire with fantastic anti-reflective treatment, and 100 meters of water resistance. It really does wipe the floor with the Seiko spec-wise, and in my opinion, the looks department too. Today we'll take a closer look at the Kuoe Royal Smith 006. Now this isn't my first ever Kuoe. I reviewed the Old Smith Field watch last year. I was also very impressed with that watch. So when Kuoe asked if I wanted to review their newest model, it was of course an absolute yes. So although I do get to keep this watch, Kuoe have had no input in the contents of this video. In terms of price, I would kind of call this like an affordable grail watch, because it isn't dirt cheap like some of the other micro brands that I review, but it's still way under the $1,000 mark. The base version of this watch comes in at $568. However, the base version does only come with a mineral crystal, and when I reviewed the Old Smith Field watch, my main criticism was that the mineral glass was super reflective, so I actually fully recommend the sapphire upgrade. Now this upgrade is expensive. It costs an extra $138 just for the sapphire version, and that's exactly why I call this an affordable grail. It's going to take a bit of guts to drop the $706 on this watch, mainly because paying $138 just for a sapphire crystal is a bit ludicrous. However, it is an exceptional crystal that really does complement the whole vibe of the watch, but I'll cover this a little later in the video, so stay tuned. Styling wise, this feels like a vintage dress watch. Kuoe calls the dial colour ivory, and I think I'll have to agree. It feels bang on the money with what you'd see in a vintage dress watch. I think that the waffle texture really does add a lot to this watch. It's a soft detail that doesn't overpower the watch, but it definitely adds a lot. The indices and hands are also super vintage. I'm not sure what to call this style. I guess daggered indices and sword hands probably describe them best. I think that Kuoe have absolutely nailed the design of this watch. It is beyond beautiful, the quintessential dress watch. Now thankfully the construction of this watch is also up to standard with the looks. The 316L stainless steel case features a completely polished finish, which would usually be a big no-no for me, but on a dress watch that's completely understandable and actually adds to the overall look. You can actually get a version of this watch with a gold plated case too, which I also think works amazingly well, and it's also the same price as the regular steel version. Strangely, for some reason Kuoe have made this dress watch have 100 meters of water resistance. I mean, I'm not complaining, but it didn't exactly need it. The sign crown does screw down, and Kuoe has put a display case back on this watch with a spec sheet laser etched on the outer. The display case back may just be one of my favorites I've seen. I highly appreciate it when the movement is almost the same size as the watch. I always think it's a bit funny when a display case back is tiny because the movement is considerably smaller than the watch. I see this all the time with NH35s inside large dive watches. When the movement is a good size in comparison with the watch, it just feels like it's been better designed. It feels like the movement is the watch rather than just being a part of it, if you get what I mean. Speaking of, ticking away inside the Royal Smith is the Miyota 9039. This is a high beat movement with unidirectional rotor winding. The power reserve is around 42 hours and the movement hacks and hand winds. The base plate of the movement also features some finishing, which is always nice to see. I also appreciate the Kuoe made in Japan gold print on the rotor. It looks excellent and matches the vibe of the watch quite well. As mentioned earlier, I do have the sapphire upgrade. It clearly features heaps of anti-reflective treatment because the dial is fabulously clear. The golden features just pop through the glass. This sapphire is a top hat double domed piece of glass that looks incredible from side angles. It looks like a classic acrylic crystal that you'd see on a watch of this style from the 1960s. Surprisingly, there's actually some decent lume on the watch too. The C3 Super Luminova can be found inside of the hands, the 12, 3, 6 and 9 indices, and 12 lume plots around the circumference of the dial. There isn't much real estate for the lume to operate, so it definitely outshines its potential. This feature, along with the great water resistance rating, really does make this a dress watch that can be used as an everyday watch too. This is a classically sized dress watch. It comes with a 35mm case diameter, which seems crazy to see in a modern watch, but this was actually considered a jumbo watch back in the day. The 42mm lug to lug gives the watch some decent wrist presence though, and the 11mm thickness, including the sapphire, feels great on the wrist and should easily slide under a cuff. For me, this is the perfect size dress watch. It's incredibly comfortable on the wrist, but still has enough wrist presence to feel like a modern, well-constructed watch. Now, the lug width on this Kuoe is 18mm, which is the ideal size for a dress watch. It allows the watch head to feel a bit bigger, and suits the proportions of the watch better than a 20mm strap would. You get a choice of colour with the leather strap you receive with the watch. I went for the dark brown option, as I felt it suited the different tones of the dial the best. The supplied leather strap is fantastic quality. This is a vegetable tanned oiled Italian leather that will patina over time. It's definitely one of the better straps that I've had with a watch. But Kuoe did also send over their beads of rice bracelet. This is an optional add-on that does cost an extra $128. Unfortunately, you don't get any fitted end links with the bracelet, so you don't get that integrated look that you see with most modern watches. Now, the bracelet is good quality. It features a signed milled clasp with micro adjustment, quick release spring bars, and it's adjusted by push pins. I do think the bracelet looks excellent with this watch. It does complement the vintage look, but I do think $128 for this bracelet is a little steep. But of course, if you want that full factory look with the signed clasp, then this is the only option. Again, affordable grail. In terms of the watch itself, I don't really have many criticisms. The movement inside of this watch is a little loud, but that's the case with most Miyota movements. And because this is a made in Japan brand, they have a lot less options when it comes to movement choice. My main criticism of this watch as a package has to be the pricing structure. Paying $138 for a sapphire crystal is hard to stomach. I'd rather Kuoe just ditch the mineral option and only sell this watch with a sapphire as standard, or offer a cheaper version with acrylic instead. I just dislike mineral crystals and think that the only place they should be is on a cheap fashion watch. It's a similar story with the bracelet too. $128 for a fairly basic bracelet is steep. It feels great quality and doesn't have any flaws, but $128 is pricey. Also, I think it should come with some end links to better integrate with the case. Now, I'm guessing that a lot of these costs come down to this being a Japanese microbrand. You really don't see many of them, and I'm guessing that's because it's an expensive business to try and run. Competing with Japanese giants like Seiko and Citizen, I'm sure is no easy feat. So kudos to Kuoe for doing things the right way. Now, this watch is without question one of, if not the, most beautiful watches that I've reviewed. I think that's where this watch excels and puts it above other watches. I'm a sucker when it comes to gilt hands and indices. Show me a bit of gold on the dial and I'm a happy man. The dial printing is minimal and doesn't get in the way. The crystal is super clear and allows the dial to take center stage. If you're somebody who only values getting great specs for the cash, then obviously this watch just isn't for you. But if you value an original design watch that is picturesque, then of course I'm sure that you're already in love. I enjoy how this watch delivers with a great spec sheet too. Having 100 meters of water resistance and decent lume was absolutely not necessary, but it's always good to have. There aren't many micro brands making dress watches these days, and there certainly aren't many making them as good looking as this. It feels like a micro brand that is actually unique, which is really hard to do in this modern wristwatch market. You'll find a link in the description to the Royal Smith page. Go and check out the gold version and the black dial version too. Absolutely stunning timepieces. But if you want some more Japanese watch goodness, then go and watch my 10 budget Japanese watches that you should try video. Really good video. Go check it out. I'll see you over there. Bye for now.